Diabonga ngoba sandithile ndithi hlala uhlezi duze diabonga ngoba Hi, Ariane, how are you? I'm awesomeness. Just stay on the line. We're going on air now.
Thank you.
Awesome. Gone 18 minutes after 6 o'clock. This one. It's a great one. It's by something Soweto, where he's also featuring the Soweto Central Chorus. The song titled Bawo, and this is exactly how we started right here on the Capital Talker with hymns of praise and saying, "Hey, siyabonga man." It is, the beginning of a new day. Once more, it is a Woman Crush Wednesday. Thank you so much for all the birthday wishes. I had a lovely day yesterday. Hey, I'm slowly leaving the 20s. I'm now going to the 30s now. Thank you so much for each and every one of you guys that have sent us, that have sent all those, lovely birthday messages. Jumping now into the hot topic today, we're looking at police brutality, and at the flip side of that, we'll be looking at many other court cases on the legal minds, and also something in property. And for today's discussion, our first guest is none other than Mr. Rian Rekert. He is from the Tshwane University of Technology, and he is in that department where they deal with safety and security management. And he'll be talking to us. Do you remember that police have been under the spotlights, particularly after so many people have died at the hands of police, whether it is during riots or it is just police enforcing law and order. Now, 4 police officers accused of the murder of Mthokozi Sintumba have appeared in the Johannesburg Magistrate Courts, where they will be formally charged today. Ntumba was shot and killed last week when police fired rubber bullets at protesting students in Braamfontein, and his death has also sparked a widespread outrage with calls for those responsible to be prosecuted. The 4 police officers that walked into court 17 here at the Johannesburg Magistrate Court, where they were met by a large media contingent. It appears as though that they're just facing a number of charges, but largely the names there is Tshepiso Kekana, Sidras Mosetwa, Madimeja Lehodi, and Victor Mohammed, who appeared in the dock dressed in casual clothing and covered their faces. And we'll be just speaking to Mr. Rekert at this point in time to just talk to us about what really happens during riots, and how exactly do we find police having killed, whether mistakenly or purposely killed a person. I'm not sure whether it can be purposefully, but I think in this regard we can just say mistakenly. Mr. Ran, good evening. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us.
Good evening, sir, and welcome to all the listeners as well. And thank you for the invite, and it's a privilege for me to talk to you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I know that we're not calling you under pleasant circumstances. I think if it was a party, things would have been a bit better. But we're here to discuss things that are quite, detrimental to society. People's lives have been lost at the hands of law enforcers, and not much is known about the modus operandi of police officers during times that are a bit crucial, so to say, in their day-to-day job, especially when it comes to crowd management. You can just take us through what is it that we, the public, are not well aware of in terms of how police work, and particularly how does it lead to police having to kill people in crowd management specifically?
Yes, thank you for the question. First of all, it brings back memories of my own days in the police. I used to be a police officer before I became a lecturer in policing. I was a police officer for 19 years, so there's a lot of things happening in the police environment currently, especially in terms of crowd management, that brings back memories, and also, I must say, some unfortunate memories, but also some memories and some insight into what actually happens in the psyche of the police official, number one, because that's an element we need to look at. The psyche of those persons, the psychology of those persons taking part in these riots, and then where does the police as an organization, what role do they play in as far as protocols, training, guidelines, and the like. So there's three components that we need to take care of, or that needs to be considered as crucial in discussing these matters. One is the individual police official. Secondly, the person on the other side of the police action, and then the organization to which the police official belongs, bang smack in the middle. So let's quickly start with all police officials are basically trained in crowd control during basic training, but the South African Police Service as an organization for many, many years have dedicated public control units, public order protection units as they were called. They were called in the old days, they were called riot control units. But the name public order policing already gives you an indication that there's an emphasis change, that it's not riot control which is their main focus, but public order. So that needs to be kept in mind. Based on that fact, the training curriculum of the police official has been designed in such a way to facilitate public order and not to facilitate riot control. So the emphasis is on proactiveness and not on reactiveness. Now, on paper, that sounds brilliant, but in practice, not so much. Let me give you an example. A public protest might start out very peacefully, even if so designed by the organizers of the public protest, but there are always elements that in the most inopportune time arrives at such incidences and occasions which for their own purposes would then like to take advantage of, and they are purely interested in a criminal outcome. I'm not saying this is the case with all public protests, but we know from experience, and this is not new to anybody listening, we all know that, and you can ask many organizers of these events, they start out peacefully, they start out trying to give a memorandum, they start out by emphasizing a point, and at the end of the day, they are burning buildings, motor vehicles, and killing people. And that's not what the organizers have in mind. So that's the first element we need to absolutely include in the dynamics here, is that there are always in these incidents opportunity for elements outside the purpose of the protest that wants to hijack, if I want to put it that way, want to hijack the prevailing conditions. And that is very difficult to train a policeman for, because those persons that enter that circumstance come with an ulterior motive, which is not peaceful in mind, and they hide and camouflage them between those protesters that are there for peaceful reasons. So it's quite difficult for the policeman to distinguish between who is who during these cases. Okay, having said that, the policemen are trained in two different ways. Proactive, by virtue of their presence and through observation, identify the situations that might escalate later, take such actions to prevent such escalation, case closed, proactive policing. Then there's the second scenario, where the elements are already present during these protest movements, where no matter what proactive steps the police officials are going to take, the person that's agitating the conditions are intent to elicit from the police a type of action. Okay. In a dangerous situation, the police, which is now not proactive anymore, it's reactive, the police are charged by the Constitution and by the Police Services Act to protect life. Not just their own life, the life of all persons. And if you have a situation where people are intent to create chaos, intent to create a riotous situation way above what this protest is for, then the police are by law required to act. And I think this is now where most people agree so far with everything I've said. It makes sense. But now comes the problem: how do they act? And more importantly, how do they react? There's a difference between acting and reacting. Acting is when you take out your firearm, or when you stand in the line and you tell or you, by virtue of your actions, indicate to the rioters or the protesters, for lack of a better word, those persons, this is the line, you're not going to come further. That is acting. But let's suppose those persons in the protest start throwing stones and burning tires, and they are now physically putting in danger the lives of police officials and or other members of the public. Then it's not acting anymore, then it's reacting. And I think when most of the students are concerned, they understand the acting part, they understand the duty of the police, they understand the volatility of the situation, but they are unhappy with the reaction part of the police.
Now, permit me to jump in there, and I like the fact that you jumped into the reaction part, because I think largely that's what is led us to where we are now. For the longest, we've had incidences where students or young people were shot and killed by live ammunition. Is it also procedural for police officers that are going to attend public right management, so to say, to have live ammunition? Is that also procedural? Is it something that is allowed? What happens in such cases?
Yes, first of all, it's allowed. A policeman without live ammunition is a useless policeman. Not just in terms of riot or public order policing, but in terms of his general job. Because remember I said that there were some elements inside that trying to hijack the situation. Now they come usually armed, and you cannot ask a policeman to go unarmed, because if you do not have live ammunition with you, you're basically going unarmed. But this is the point, and it's a very good question you're asking. I like the question, because as the policemen stand there, all protests are categorized. Category A, B, and C. A category A protest is a peaceful, it's like a sit-in, people barging the gates and putting up obstacles. It's peaceful, nothing happens, they're not threatening anybody, they're not threatening property, they're just busy with their protest. That's a category A protest. Then you get the category B protest, where it's still relatively peaceful, but there is a chance that it can escalate into something else, and that's where, now usually in category A, the police are visible, but no action whatsoever. In category B, the police are being forced by protocol to show action in terms of act. The act I spoke about, draw a line, tell the people, try to communicate with the organizers and the fact. Then you get category C, riots or protests, that is basically out of control and that are now threatening life and property in no uncertain terms. In category C, live ammunition is on the ready. Doesn't mean it's going to be used. It's on the ready and available. In category A, no ammunition, no weaponry, either in terms of live ammunition and or rubber bullets is used, because it's peaceful. Mere presence is enough. In category D, rubber bullets is advised until it escalates beyond a certain point. Then you can add additional crowd control measures, such as the water cannon, or tear gas, but that's in extreme cases. We're trying to avoid that as well. So please keep in mind that the police officer in charge, and this is, I think, a very, very important issue I'm addressing right now. The police officer in charge must take responsibility for categorizing what is happening in front of him, because that categorizing and him announcing the category will tell the police officials below him what to do and what type of training they should now exercise. Do they now exercise training for category A, category B, or category C? And I think this is what happened in this latest incident. It was a category B that escalated so fast into a category C that the policeman did not have time to react. I'm not coming up here for the policeman. I'm not taking his side here. But things can escalate automatically and dramatically within an instant. But that is where I blame the police. They should be aware proactively that things can escalate. But sometimes they wait for it to fester too long before they react. And as soon as they are allowed or not allowed, as soon as they are prepared to use rubber bullets and thereafter water cannon and or tear gas, there should be an announcement made to the rioters. Now, usually that is done, but it's done by shouting at the rioters. There should be a public announcement system telling these rioters, if you do not disperse and or stop within the next 5 minutes doing what you're doing, we are going to use rubber bullets as a means to try and be proactive. That announcement should be made publicly. If the protesters then do not adhere to the request, but it must be fair. You cannot tell these protesters, if you don't stop in the next 10 seconds, we will shoot you. That's not fair. If you say in the next 3 to 5 minutes, guys, either you calm down or we will be forced to use rubber bullets. And if the protesters then continue and do not de-escalate the situation themselves, then obviously the police are in their right frame of mind and they are within their right according to law to act. Now I'm bringing in another element here. We always talk about the police that must take responsibility. Just for once, and I'm not asking people to like what I say now, but I'm trying to be objective here, all right? Just for once, when are we going to hold also the organizers of the protests responsible for anything that escalates beyond the point of reasonableness? So it's not just the police that must take responsibility to keep things calm down. The planners and organizers of these protest actions at some stage must also put enough systems in place or proactive measures in place to see to it that this does not escalate beyond certain points. Because if it does, they are the people who ask the persons to come join the protest. They are aware of the possible risks. They cannot say we don't take any responsibility whatsoever. Yes, they can never be asked to take responsibility for the policeman who acts outside the law. No, that's not what I'm saying here. What I am saying here, if things are starting to get out of hand, you would like to see the police and the organizers work together. Because there's lives at stake here. Young people's lives. I don't want a parent to stand next to a grave. I'm a parent myself. I don't want to stand next to a grave. So, and just as these organizers of these events, and as the policemen who also have children, and these organizers of these events who have mothers and fathers, don't want to see somebody next to a grave, that's what they must think about. Rather come back and next day and fight another fight than kill somebody innocent today. So at the end of the day, are the police entitled to have sharp point live ammunition with them? The answer is yes. Because things can escalate to category C at any point in time. They must, however, use that as the very, very, very last resort. And I think sometimes they jump to that last resort too quickly. Because you must remember also, a policeman is a human being. And I think sometimes students and sometimes normal citizens forget that policeman standing there is somebody else's father, somebody else's brother. That person, that policeman standing there might have a child at university, maybe at another university. Never forget that the policeman, like the protesters, is a human being that also gets scared, that also gets annoyed, that also gets frustrated, that also get confused, just like a normal human being. I don't know why you think as soon as somebody puts on a uniform, he becomes a robot. Why somebody puts on a uniform, all of a sudden he must be in control of his emotions because that's what he gets paid for. You can get paid for up to a point.
Yeah.
The human will always take over up to a point. I'm not giving you, I'm not making excuses for policemen here. Please, guys, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
I hear
Please
you.
keep in mind, it's also another human being. But having said that, we must not put inexperienced policemen there. When I was at the public order policing unit, I was experienced. I had at least 10 years service. So here's the other element I want to bring in. The recruiting people that work at POP, public order protection units. Those people must be specially selected to psychologically and in experience, and they must get additional training so that they can cope with the stresses and the frustration barriers. Their frustration barriers must be very high, not very low. Their tolerance levels must be high, not very low. And I think the commanding officers there must also be specially selected on that criteria. And that, my friend, I think is the big problem here. The elephant in the room is not training. The elephant in the room is not what the law allows and doesn't allow. The elephant in the room is not the categorization of riot. The elephant in the room is the quality of the type of police official we have that's got to deal with it. That's the elephant in the room.
Correct.
And I don't have an answer for you right now because that elephant in the room is killing people. You understand what I'm saying?
Because you know why I wanted to actually jump in there, because of one of the other things that were cited by normal civilians was, doesn't this person also indicate the shortcomings in terms of how prepared is our police system in terms of providing professional people to be able to deal with such situations? I mean, I understand the nature of riots, that in sometimes they become quite difficult. But how do you explain? I mean, we saw a footage of Mr. Ntumba being killed, and he was a bystander. Yeah. There's a case of a young boy who was killed at some point by police through live ammunition. At what point should government, or rather should our police services be able to say, you know what, Rian is good enough now to be able to handle such incident? Is there perhaps a time where they get an opportunity to just train and be in the shadow and not be able to act? I mean, we cannot also ignore what happened in Marikana, because that's another example in terms of how our constant failure to manage such incidents. Do you think at this point in time that our SEPs is significantly capacitated to deal with the load that is really that they are really facing on a daily basis? Because the high inequality in South Africa forces South Africans to, from time to time, protest. Now, is our police services adequately given enough empowerment to deal with what is awaiting them?
That's some very important and very crucial issues there, but also you've touched on very sensitive issues, all right? Because the police as an organization don't want to be told by anybody what to do inside the organization. I come from this environment. I was there for almost 20 years. I was a station commissioner. The police are autonomous. They say, listen, this is how we operate. And they are not very keen on external advice. In the UK, for instance, and I don't want to go Europe, but let's take best practices somewhere else. In the UK, the public order equivalent police officials are not selected by the police, but are selected by the community. Before you join the public order police equivalent unit in the UK, a policeman actually applies to go to that unit, and part and parcel of the interview process, on the interview panel are members of the public. That is a step in the right direction. Another thing I would like to say, and I'm going to say this without fear or favor. You know what? Sometimes they take the officials out of matric. Nothing wrong with matric, but they are not mature enough. And that police official then joins the police, and he gets taught by the older police officials how to act and react beyond the training. You understand? And this youngster wants to fit into the police, and he does what the old policeman tells them. I've got another suggestion. I've got 120 students a year qualifying through their qualifications, policing diplomas, that doesn't get a job in the police. Why don't they take those policemen or those students who have qualified and they ask them to join the South African Police Service? And by the time that this person gets to a rioted situation like that, he or she will remember what it's to be like a student. So we know it's got the added responsibility of a police official. And that for me will be a happy compromise between the functionality and the obligations of the South African Police Service versus the compassion and humanity needed when dealing with certain situations. Because these older policemen must never ever forget that they were youngsters themselves. At some stage, they might have partook in riots and protests themselves. But they forget that. So I think we must get to a point. If the police service doesn't realize by now, especially with this latest innocent bystander which you refer to, when is there going to be an internal or external review? Now they say IPID, the Independent Police Investigation Department will investigate the matter. That is also a government department. When are we going to have external reviews by a judicial element, as who are also representing the community? The community members actually sit and review after the investigation, after the done investigation. When are they going to sit and review or be part of the review process? When are we going to get the community to make sure that they are involved in platforms that keep the police accountable? That's not happening in South Africa. And maybe the time, like you've mentioned, when will the time arrive that we as a community demand, not through CPFs, community police forums, I'm not talking about community police forums. That's for normal day-to-day policing functions. I'm talking when people die. When people die at the hands of the police, there should not be an investigation. There should be an investigation. But there should not be another government department policing the police. When are the community going to have an opportunity to have insight into this? And that's an element I want to introduce. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Sure. I wish we had more time. I know that you've got another, important engagement coming through. But as a parting shot, I just want us to quickly, in the last minute, the case on the 4 police officers that are now in the dock. What is the likelihood? What kind of charges do you think they're facing? And just before you answer that as well, can a rubber bullet kill a person?
The answer to can a rubber bullet kill a person is no. I use rubber bullets in myself. I was shot at less than 2 meters with a rubber bullet. It hurts like hell. You have bruises all over your body like crazy, but it does not penetrate the skin. And it must be a blank shot to the head, like in almost like execution style, for a bullet to penetrate, for a rubber bullet to penetrate or to kill a person. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's highly, highly unlikely. Also, talk about the rubber bullet has been used since 1965-66. And the occasions where it kills people are less than 0.0 something of a percentage. So it's not impossible. I'm not saying that is. But it is definitely not a common attribute for bullets to penetrate the skin, for rubber bullets to penetrate the skin and kill a person. To answer your question, in terms of these police officials, they will be obviously standing to charge of culpable homicide at the least and murder at the most. And I think they will not get away with it. That's not what I'm saying. But I think a conviction in this case is unlikely.
Sure. Interesting. 46 after 6 o'clock. That's exactly where we're going to end it. I honestly, but at least we're still going to have you quite more. Thank you so much for speaking to us at this point in time. May you have a lovely evening, sir.
Thank you. So, and to all the students out there, peace out and God bless.
Awesomeness. Tshwane, that is Mr. Rian Rickert. It's actually Pastor Rian Rickert that is speaking to us at this point in time. And the discussion there is on, police brutality. Police, have been under the spotlight based on a number of things. And largely it's how, they police, how they police people during riots, and young people are protesting in universities, and things are just getting very, very bad there. But yeah, thank you so much. We're gonna now cut it now from with our those that we're watching from the Tshwane University of Technology TUT page. Thank you so much for tuning in there. And that's where we ended with you guys. We want to proceed with the discussion further. 47 minutes have gone since 6 o'clock. We'll be looking at refeed. We're to look at other things. And of course, a big story as well that we'll be looking at now as well is that a school principal accused of instructing a pupil to extract his phone from a pit latrine has been granted bail. Now it appears that Lubeko Lennox Mkadela Fulnan appeared briefly in the Tsolo Magistrate Court in the Eastern Cape on a charge of child abuse that today, and he allegedly coerced an 11-year-old pupil into retrieving his cell phone from a dirty pit toilet. Yeah, no, it's tough. It's really tough. So we'll be looking at that as well on the flip side of this lovely song.
Wrap your ears around Tshwane FM 93.6. Your station, your music.
Don't know how, but you did it. Made a way. Standing here, not knowing how we'll get through this test. But holding on to faith, you know better. Nothing can catch you by surprise. You got it figured out. Watching us now. And when it looks as if we can't win, wrap within your arms and step in. Everything we need you to supply. You got it in control. And now we know that you made our way. When our backs were against the wall, and it looked as if it was over, you made our way. And we're standing here only because you made our way. You made a way. Now we're here, looking back on where we come from. Because of you and nothing we've done to deserve the love and mercy you show. But your grace was strong enough to pick us up, and you made our way. When our backs were against the wall, and it looked as if it was over, Lord, you made a way. And we're standing here, only because you made a way. When our backs were against the wall, and it looked as if it was over, Lord, you made a way. And we're standing here, only because you made a way. You moved mountains, you caused walls to fall with your power. For me, recall, there is nothing that's impossible.
Hola, hola. Stay on the line.
And we're standing here only because you came. And we're standing here only because you made a way. And we're standing here only because you made. You move mountains. You move mountains. You move mountains.
What are you doing?
You move mountains. You cause walls to fall. 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 And you cause chains to break. You cause chains to break. You cause chains to break. You cause and I'm afraid. Giants fall. Giants fall. Giants fall. Giants fall. Mountains are moving. Mountains are moving. Mountains, you gotta get in the spiritual realm. Mountains are moving. And strongholds are breaking now. Strongholds are breaking now. Strongholds are breaking. Strongholds are breaking. 'Cause you move mountains. Cause walls to fall. With your power. With your power. With your power. Your power, for me, reload, for me, reload, for me, reload, for me. My son is breathing, my son is living, my son is breathing, my son is living. When the devil said no, hey. You say yes, and I don't get it. When the devil said no, you say yes. When they pronounce me dead, you say not yet. When they call me dead.
Travis Union, this one is titled You Made a Way. It's a very lovely tune, man. Yeah. I do. Anyway, an Eastern Cape school principal accused of instructing a pupil to extract his phone from a pit latrine has been granted bail. But on the line, our law guru is here, our legal pundit is here. It is time for legal matters, or the legal minds, with the blonde lawyer that is Refile on the line. Refile, hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I know that you've got a moria of stories for today.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting. I mean, we're not even we are halfway through the week, but it's been such an interesting week in South Africa. I mean, the things that we've been seeing on the internet, that we've been seeing on our TV news. I mean, it's shocking. It's been one interesting week.
I could imagine. Let's jump into it. What do you have? Tell us your list first.
So my list, right? We are going to talk about the appalling school principal saga who literally, essentially, for the lack of a better term, threw an 11-year-old into a toilet pit filled with feces. And then the second matter that we're going to go into is the inquiring to the public protector's competence. And lastly, we're going to talk about something that's been trending on social media, especially Twitter, that explicit video of a prison warder and an inmate doing the rounds on social media, which has been quite shocking on my end. I don't know how everybody else thinks about that video, but it's a shocking video. I don't know. We'll get into it with you later.
I sort of saw it a bit. Yeah.
I know that video is on another level. I think it's embarrassing. I to be honest, I'm a bit disappointed, right?
What's disappointing you? Is it the performance or the fact that it happened?
Both, joking. Listen, the reason why I'm disappointed, Mokete, is that a couple of years ago, we had a similar situation, but in this instance, it was that, I don't know if you guys remember, it was that police officer and the prison warder video of the female police officer and the male prison warder, and who were in an office and had a similar situation that happened, and it did its round on social media. And I don't know how true this is, but we then heard of how this lady was subsequently committed suicide and the prison warder was subsequently dismissed. But for me, what is disappointing is I actually didn't think in 2021 we would see such a video of somebody being so reckless, the prison warder being so reckless in 2021, doing that on video in 2021. Very disappointing.
Yeah, it seems as if prison warders are always involved in these sex videos.
Yeah, I mean, they spend most of their days with these people. They have to gut these people. They have to make sure that these people are okay. And for me, what was also concerning is there's a point in this video, not that I watched the entire video, I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there. I can't never learn the whole video. But
there's nothing wrong. If you like watching such videos, it's a personal thing. It's okay, yes.
What was shocking was the fact that she doesn't think of the consequences. Here you are engaging in this act with this person who can possibly escape. I mean, for me,
exactly. I got worried. How did this guy get there in the first place?
So probably, maybe this guy Naya. You know how people inmates can go, they can go out for fresh air. They can go out to the doctor if they need to go to the doctor. They can go to libraries. I mean, prisons have libraries where some of them study for exams via UNISA, all those things. So, I mean, he could have been gone somewhere. He could have said, "I'm going." Oh, he was probably cleaning. Was carrying something to clean. Then this lady, I'm there in the room. But for me, what is also disappointing, she actually gave him the key. There's a point in the video where this guy, he takes the key. And why kill anybody? So my thing is, I mean, she didn't think for what is this guy? Okay. Also, what I think probably happened is what I was about to say. Let me finish my thought. Actually, to say she didn't think of this guy. I got to keep him. I will kill her inside that room and run off. But I was also thinking probably they've been doing this for so long. She's so relaxed with this guy that she doesn't think that there would be any type of consequences or that there was a risk that this person might escape. But for me, she didn't think of that danger. I'm actually here engaging in this activity with an inmate that we don't know what this inmate is in for. It could be in for murder, for rape, and here you are engaging in this activity with him.
Without a condom.
Of the consequences, you know?
Without a condom, even.
And that's the other disappointing thing that I was.
But you know what's the big thing for me? I like how because now it's a female warden. We're now looking at, hey, but what if this guy could have escaped? What if it was a male? We could have said maybe this guy is manipulating this lady, saying that I'll do this and that for you because of highly banna. And they force them in a corner. Why don't we think even in this case that this woman was actually the one abusing this guy? Because if it was a female and a male alien is one more abuser, maybe one about two, hey, watch out. But if it's a male, we only think about escaping. You get what I'm getting at?
No, I agree with you. And it goes to the root, the core, the point that you are getting here is abuse of power. This lady is essentially abusing her power. I mean, she probably, and I'm not saying we don't know the facts, but I'm just, here's another, let's play devil's advocate. And you're right, what if she's the one who's been approaching this guy, coercing him into having the sexual engagement or relationship with her? And the guy gave in knowing that she's a wada, the prison wada, she can really abuse me. So it's essentially abuse of power on her end because she's in the position of power. So this guy is essentially at her mercy. Not that we don't know the facts of the case. We don't know who approached who, but there's an element of abuse of power in the sense that this is a person who is in this position, and yet she is engaging in sexual activities in a way. You can definitely reason that she could have coerced him and forced him into having a sexual relationship with him, with her. So it is, you can look at it from that angle, abuse of power. It is definitely abuse of power. And unfortunately, we don't know what's going to happen. Well, with her, we do know what's probably going to happen. I mean, she's been suspended already. She'll probably get dismissed for her conduct because obviously in terms of her code of conduct, miracle, she's not supposed to engage in sexual activities with inmates and so forth. It's prohibited. I mean, there's nothing in law prohibiting them from having sexual activities with two people.
I think there is, actually. I remember there was a case of this other man who wanted to get married, who was in a prison. And it was actually declared that he can get married, but he wanted to have sex, I think, a couple of times with the wife. I think with the wife that he had just married. I think the case is still being held in court. But what they were saying is that as a prisoner, you are stripped of those benefits, the freedom to have sex. So basically, even this prisoner, from where I'm looking at it, he can actually still get a charge because you are not supposed to have sex when you are in prison.
Well, so there's an exception to that rule. You can actually apply to court, but it would be. I've seen several cases. I just haven't seen one where there's an actual outcome where prisoners have made applications to court to ask for conjugal rights. Conjugal rights are to engage in sexual activity with their spouses. So where they're asking the prison to say, the judge to say, court, give me access give me 3 hours every once a month for my wife to come in, and then me and her can have exercise our conjugal rights. And I want to have it over at least once a month. There are prisoners who do lots of activity. I know there's a case of a former this Babadi who applied to have conjugal rights and dismissed his application. So you actually do have an opportunity to apply to a court to ask for conjugal rights.
Oh, so for 3 hours?
Yes?
Or 3 hours?
Yeah, so you tell the corporate, I want 3 hours once a month for this person to be allowed to come in. Then the correctional service facility must just provide us with an area where we can do our business and then this person. So they do make case. I haven't seen a case with a positive outcome. You never know. Actually, that's something I'll trust myself into looking into. But there is case law where people have actually gone to court, and I saw a recent one. I actually saw a yesterday where they missed application to allow conjugal rights. So they do apply to have conjugal rights. So, I mean, they can't do it without getting consent. So normally they would have to get consent from the head of that particular correctional facility to give them that, if they refuse, then they'll go to court. So in this case, I think what will probably happen to the prisoner is they'll get some type of punishment. There isn't really a charging law that says if you have sex whilst you're in prison, you are charged with obstructive or whatever. There isn't a case, but I think you'll probably get some type of punishment. You might be locked up in another cell, something like that. But obviously with the prison warder, we do know that she's also not prohibited. She can engage in sexual activities that she wants. But in this case, it's wrong because code of conduct here, a correctional service prohibits them from having sexual intercourse with inmates. So there, she's definitely going to be dismissed from her employment. I can guarantee that. So with him, it's a little bit tricky. You ask yourself, what are they going to charge him with? But probably you get some type of punishment.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Interesting. Let's move to the second case. The principal and Pete story. What's happening there?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that everybody has heard of the story where a school principal forced an 11-year-old to go to undress and go into a pit toilet filled with feces, obviously, to go and get their cell phone that fell into the toilet.
Sure.
I mean, first of all, it's disgusting. It's disgusting the fact that this grown adult who has been left in the care of the children as a school principal deemed it appropriate to tell an 11-year-old, hey, my phone fell in the toilet, go in and then get my undressed firstly in front of all of your peers, undressed and violate. Firstly, they violated that child by telling that child to undress in front of everybody, including that principal, then to go into that toilet to apply with dressing. For me, it's beyond it being disgusting. It's appalling that this person who was entrusted with the safety of the children. I mean, as a parent, when you take your child to school, you have the assumption that my teacher already principal are there to take care of your child, and that no harm will come to your child whilst they're in the care of the teachers, the school, and the principal. So for the principal himself to now force this child to firstly embrace in front of his or her peers, and then to go to that pit toilet is for me very appalling. But nevertheless, this principal was charged with child abuse, rightly so, and he was then released on bail today at 2.5. And also, the Teachers Association is actually charging him with unprofessional conduct. And it will be interesting to see whether he will be dismissed, because I've noticed there's a leniency with teachers. He'll probably just get a smack on the bum and they'll tell him you're suspended or a warning, which is frustrating, because I think the core of this matter is the fact that as a school principal, when I leave my child in your care, I expect you to take care of this child. I don't expect you to expose this child to any type of danger. I mean, even in cases where Bana has fallen into toilet, there was a case in Limpopo where the school principal and the teachers were held liable, because as a school teacher, as a principal, it is your duty to take care of children who are in your care. Nobody expects you to expose them to some type of risk, which is what the principal has done. And that is why this case is getting a lot of media attention, because not only is it the fact that he negated his duty to take care of this, to make sure that the kid is safe, but also just the disgusting manner of demanding that an 11-year-old, after your movie pieces, after your phone that is probably even damaged by these pieces, for me is appalling. I don't know what you think of it when Mokete. I'm open to hearing your views on this one.
12 after 7 o'clock. Let's move to the other story, the public protector. But she's unfit, so the public is not protected in a sense.
No, and guys, let's be honest. The public protector is a very important function in our democracy. This is a Chapter 9 institution that is very important. Public protector is a watchdog, essentially, of all government action. So the public protector is there to make sure that government, authorities of state, and even private parties abide by the law. So if the public protector cannot apply the law in the first place, how are they going to make sure that everybody else complies with the law that they themselves cannot even interpret. I mean, for me, I think it's very important that this inquiry is held. In my view, I do not believe that she's competent. She's not competent. The public protector is definitely not competent. She has shown through her repeated errors and all the mistakes that she's made that she's not competent to hold this position. And like I said, this is a very important function within our democracy. We need somebody who's competent to be in this role. And listen, and whether you know what, she's got every right to look into various presidents, various ministers. That is her exact role. But when she does that, she needs to make sure that she's applying the correct law and following the correct processes. And she can't make, I mean, she's got this public protector has about 2 court orders against her in her personal capacity where they're saying, you have misapplied the law to such a point that we can't allow your office to be liable for this. You are wasting taxpayers' money. As a matter of fact, this must come from your own pocket, you know.
Interesting. 14 minutes after 7. Tshwane FM 93.6. This is exactly where we are.
And yes. I just have an interesting point there. My interesting point is I'm also noticing how funny it is, and not to name political parties, but also just how inconsistent political parties in South Africa are, right? A lot of people are throwing a tantrum about how the ANC has betrayed the public protector because they were supposed to have her back. They pushed for her appointment initially. And the EFF, which initially had issues with the public protector, and at one point they called her a Gupta and how she was sell out. She probably related to Gupta's corrupt ministers. All of a sudden, it's a whole 180 now, where the EFF is suddenly coming to her rescue and telling everybody how the ANC is persecuting an innocent woman and how could the DA persecute an innocent woman. So I think our listeners should watch out and just sit down and analyze things for themselves, because I just find it interesting to see how our political parties, how they are aligning themselves, because everybody now is saying that the ANC is now aligning itself with the DA because obviously they know that municipal elections are coming up and then the coalition talks are underway, so they would want to be aligned to that for now to make sure that they get the majority to get out the EFF. So things like that, it's very interesting to see.
15 after 7. What more do we have?
So no, that's all I have for you guys for today. I do identify too much. I don't want to give you guys too much. So that's all I have for you guys for today. But next week, obviously, I'll bring more interesting topics for our listeners. But I think we've covered a lot today. We've covered trending topics in South Africa that have gotten everybody talking, especially the first topic that we discussed. But that's all for today, and I'll be back next week with more interesting topics, and hopefully I'll be back in studio next week.
Thank you so much. Definitely, you need to come back and come back sober. Thank you so much for your contribution today.
Thank you. See you guys next week.
Awesomeness. It's 16 minutes after 7. Tshwane FM 93.6. That's exactly where we are. I want to move to more music. And after that, we then jump into property matters. And that is, it's a Women Crush Wednesday. So we're doing it, man, in a way, that is just so befitting. So if you do have a song request, remember to join us on the listeners playlist. We'll play that song for you. This one is by Azana. It's Your Love. Good evening.
Wrap your ears around 93.6. Your music, your station.
This is your boy DJ Mzala.
93.6. Tshwane FM 93.6. Your station, your music. That city's number one.
Kishab Shumya.
Tshwane FM 93.6, Cap City's #1 radio station.
Hey, but what if what if Gerson ran the president of Mzala? Mozart Africa. You man come with a Stswana. Put on Facebook and book and ask about them. When you never mixed it, there's a gun. And right was one of the snacks. President let them come and begin not to like the robot over there again. I elevated Emma them from Pune. Hey, yellow, I didn't tell we take a no other Marwa, Emma,
Capital Breakers
On Tshwane FM.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. #ROD.
25 after 7, Tshwane FM 93.6. We are the station that continues to rock you most. Thank you so much for your listening pleasure. We still come through to you live on Facebook. It is Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6. Check out Mokete Radebe on Facebook as well and on YouTube. It is at Tshwane FM on Twitter and at Tshwane FM _official on Instagram. Checking some of your comments. And here's one comment here from D. Dorrell Anderson. It's such a lovely name. And she says, the principal should go to prison. And I agree with you fully. I think quite a lot, some of our instructors or our teachers, man, they're taking this thing too far. They abuse children, and that is a problem. There's a funny joke that I was laughing at some point where, some people will say, are we still writing, the homework, some grade 2, or we're doing assignment, it actually got me thinking that sometimes people in power abuse power, and that is problematic.
But do you think that's true, though?
It's possible.
Well, I would like to. I feel like homework thing is quite hard. I mean, if you
do you have a grade 2?
No. I'm just talking from experience that I've seen from friends.
Okay, so so if you've seen from friends, it's not experience. Experience is what you've experienced. Unless if you're saying how would you see this one with experience is what you've experienced. We go only.
Thing is, for instance, let's say you're now 14, they ask you what is the plural. Okay, I know it, but I can't explain it. How do you explain it to your kid then? That's you. Some people aren't.
Nonetheless, are you good?
No, I'm nice.
Great weekend.
Something like that.
Okay. All right.
Along those lines.
Were you drunk?
What do you mean I was drunk?
And you will last week or not?
Me? On air?
Yes.
I don't know. We can ask the listeners if they've heard that from my mouth.
Okay. No, let's assume they forgot. But yeah, at least we're in agreement with the adorable D. Anderson that the principal must go to prison.
Hey, prison. I don't know. I think
there must be.
I feel like prison is a bit too harsh. Not that I'm being lenient.
But what about the humiliation that this child has suffered? Okay,
how about they suspend his salary for like 3 months? That's where he'll feel it.
Yeah, you see, he will feel it. But what about the dignity of this child?
So you think taking him to prison will strip off his dignity?
You've been a child, before, ne?
Yes.
So you know what children are like.
I know, I completely understand.
This child will be remembered as all like in toilet.
Yeah, when you put it in that context, you're 90. Because I mean, imagine you're now in grade 12. Someone cracks a joke in the class, or hey, you did this and that.
Look, this thing what on until varsity.
Ish.
Low self-esteem until that's the same.
Anyway, I think the only best solution for the kid is for the parents to take him to a different school. But then what if the parents aren't in that position?
Exactly. Normally it's in schools way longer. If it's a pit toilet, for the schools where parents are struggling and the principal told what say they won't say anything. It's even a single mother or a single father.
Yeah, that's really
and that is sad. But yeah, let's move to property. Thank you so much for those comments. There's 29 minutes that have gone since the hour 7 o'clock. Give us your take in terms of the topics that we've been covering today. The public protect the prison water. Sexy. You can also jump into police brutality, and also what we're talking about now. It's the different roles that attorneys play in buying property.
Yes.
So jumping into that now. Yeah, but yeah, the prison one, what do you make of that?
Hey, I feel like the warden was quite Ali Kennis. Because I saw on Twitter, because the comments were actually, some of them were quite true. I mean, she actually saw that video that it was actually being taken.
I'm yet to see to watch the video. Now that everyone is talking about it in this way, I'm gonna definitely watch it.
No, it's quite. No, I just saw it on Twitter.
Oh, where on Twitter? Let's go and look.
On the trend airing prisoner. Yeah, I saw it earlier on this afternoon actually.
Okay, I agree. Prisoner.
#prisoner.
Yeah. #prisoner. Okay, so we're now on check out because of
no, like I was just checking what's really trending, and then the thing is, I was seeing different posts from people, but no, these people are actually married. Chigi, no, these people aren't married. So I was like, let me just try to understand the story, because obviously I'll be coming in today, and I might have to put in my input with regards to this.
Hey man.
Hectic, right?
Yeah, no, okay, born.
Yeah. And that's not even the start. At the start, like the start of the video, you can see that she can see that it is being recorded. So I feel like that was just her dumb move of letting this happen. And I mean, the fact that you guys are wearing public clothes that are, no one can actually, I mean, everyone can see and identify, okay, wadna, or naki, a prisoner.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, it's quite hectic.
Okay, no, I enough but I check. Oh, but there's a full video.
Look at this section.
Okay,
wait, start. So you can see that she can see that he's recording.
Oh, he's putting the recording, and she's well aware of it.
She's very well aware.
But is she aware that he's recording, or it could be that he's just putting the phone?
I think there's like 10 seconds where she looks this side. So that's where I got my information that she was just being careless, honestly.
Okay. The videos are Tobalan. All right. Yeah, we're gonna move to. But yeah, if you saw the video, tell us what do you make of it? Would you like to watch the video, and what do you make of adults bias and Tutsoma? But yeah, let's move into property matters.
So today, with regards to the property space, I'd just like to talk about the different roles that attorneys play in either buying or selling a property.
Sure.
So firstly, I'd like to say that there's about 3 attorneys that are involved. So of these 3 attorneys, essentially what you find is a transferring attorney. So what a transferring attorney does, it's the person who is the one that's orchestrating the transfer, ensuring that the seller and the purchaser produce their documents, and also ensuring that other relevant documents are in place. I'll actually touch on it.
Does this apply on both new developments and existing houses?
So obviously existing houses, definitely. When it comes to developments, I'm not 100% sure, because sometimes it happens that the developer would say there's already a fixed amount that you'll be paying every month. So that means that already the developer has made arrangements with a certain attorney.
I hear you.
Yeah. So essentially, like I said, what are we talking about is the transferring attorney, the bond registration attorney, and also the bond cancellation attorney.
Okay.
Yeah. So firstly, when you conclude a transaction, basically there can be several attorneys that are involved.
Yeah.
Also, it can happen that there's only one law firm that actually does all the legal aspects or the actions. So firstly, let me start with the transferring attorney. So what is the transferring attorney responsible of? So they're basically responsible of overseeing the transaction, like I said. Secondly, they are normally appointed by the seller. It can happen that as a purchaser, you do request that your attorney is used. But then now, as a seller, they wouldn't really want to do that because chances are they want to avoid conflict of interest. So in most cases, the one who's selling is the one who selects the transferring attorney. And then thirdly, they are the ones who are drafting the documents and making sure that the relevant people who did the signatures are abiding to what the contract says. Fourthly, what they do is that they obtain either a transfer, obtain a transfer duty receipt or exemption. What that means is that obviously, currently, if you buy a property above R1 million, that's when you pay transfer duty, right? And then if it's below R1 million, you don't pay transfer duty.
Sure.
So that transferring attorney, what they will do is that they will request those documents from SARS.
Okay, please repeat that again. Okay. So if you buy a property
above R1 million,
yeah,
you pay transfer duty. Transfer duty is essentially SARS. It's essentially tax that you pay to the government. So what the transferring attorney does is that they go to SARS, and then if the property is above R1 million, that's where they get the receipt.
How much is that amount?
Okay, so basically, in a scale of one. So from the first R1 million, so if, for instance, you buy a property that's 1.2, that transfer duty will be actually higher than if you were to buy a property that's 1,050,000 rand. So the higher the purchase price, the higher the transfer duty. But then now, if the property is below R1 million, you don't pay transfer duty. A lot of people tend to confuse that. Yeah. And then also the fact that you're buying it from a developer, it can happen that you don't have to pay transfer duty from a developer specifically. But then transfer costs are being paid. I've seen a couple of tweets on Twitter whereby people think that if you're buying from a developer, you don't pay transferring costs. No, it's transfer duty, not transferring costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. 35 after 7.
And then also the other receipt, that the other document that they get is an exemption. So obviously, if the property is below R1 million, they get a letter stating that no, this transaction is exempted from paying transfer duty.
From paying basically tax.
Tax, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 35 after 7. Tshwane FM 93.6. If you're listening to us or watching us on social media, give us your comment. Are you in the property space? Are you planning to be in the property space? What are some of the challenges that you've encountered, and how do you think they can be best, adhered to? 0123249936. That's exactly where we are at this point in time. Coming through to you live on Facebook, Tshwane Space FM Space 93.6, and on YouTube, it's Mokete Radebe. Still on Facebook, Mokete Radebe as well. Tony T is in the house, and we're discussing a number of elements in this regard. Please proceed, my brother.
Yes. So another thing that they do is that they request for clearance certificates. So they will actually ask the relevant departments that are involved. Those relevant departments, firstly, could be the municipality.
Sure.
Obviously, since as if you're a property owner, you pay rates and taxes. So what they will do is that they request the municipality for a clearance certificate to see if you've got any outstanding rates and taxes, so that can be cleared out. Obviously, the seller will have to pay that. That's the first thing. The second department that they look at, it's either a home owners association or body corporate.
Yeah.
For instance, if you've got like levies. So basically levies. So that's where they'll also get the clearance certificate for levies specifically. And then what the transferring attorney does as well, they also look at the financial aspect of the transaction. So let's say you were to buy in cash. What happens is that money will actually be deposited into a trust account. That's the most important thing. It has to be in a trust account. It's actually by law that it has to be in a trust account. So they're the ones who keep the purchase price, also keep the deposit that you pay as the purchaser. So those are the things they do. And then the last thing that they do as well is that they coordinate the lodgement of the transaction. Basically, the transferring attorney, like I said, they collect all the relevant documents from the seller and from the purchaser. Once all those documents are in place, that's when now they create this file. This file is now presented to the deeds office. That's when we call it lodgement. Lodgement means it takes normally about 2 weeks or about 7 working days. Once the property is in lodgement, just know that time. Yeah. So basically, that's the transferring attorney. Now, secondly, the bond registration attorney. So what the bond registration attorney does is that they oversee the registration of the bond for the purchaser. Essentially, what this does is that if you're buying a property using the bank will either appoint an attorney so that they can draft a document, so that there can be a relationship between you, the purchaser, and the bank. So the middleman will actually be the bond registration attorney. He's the one who compiles the document so that you can be in agreement with the bank with regards to how long you'll be paying this bond, the fees involved, and stuff like that.
Sure, interesting. 38 after 7, Tshwane FM.
And then also, it is possible for you as the purchaser to actually select the bond registration attorney. But then obviously what's most important is that attorney has to be part of the panels. So each and every bank has got different panels. Yeah.
So and this is universal in all transactions.
Yes, all transactions.
Amazing. We hardly get to hear about these things, eh? Yeah.
Just stand there. And then lastly, the bond cancellation attorney. So what the bond cancellation attorney does is that they oversee the cancellation of the bond. Basically, as the seller, if your property is currently on the bond or under a bond, that's when an attorney has to be involved. Similar to the bond registration attorney, you also need one for you to cancel your bond as the seller. So he's the one who will actually be the middleman between you, the seller, and the bank to ensure that the bond is now cancelled. And then just a few things that I can just advise. Firstly, it's always wise to make use of a very reputable law firm, because some law firms, they really do take time. For instance, there's a transaction I'm currently working on. It's actually the bond registration attorney. She's a candidate. Since she's a candidate, there was a time whereby she was actually on sick leave, but then we weren't told that she's on sick leave. That time, the property is actually due for registration. Now, the problem is that property that was bought is actually bought for investment purposes. It could have registered in March so that the owners can now put in tenants, which are students. But now, because that attorney was sick and never really updated us, and also that law firm specifically, since that lady was on sick leave, obviously the receptionist was supposed to take care of her emails, but then now there was no communication, which now delayed the transaction about 3 weeks. Even today, they haven't responded to us, because this property could have lodged a long time ago.
I hear
but then now they're just being slow, So it's always wise to make sure that the company that you are choosing is a reputable company. And then secondly, with regards to all these three attorneys, it can happen that you find one law firm that
offers all of them.
All of them. In most cases, this is the best way to go about it, because that's where the transaction will definitely be smooth. There won't be any delays. Everything is under one umbrella, if I can put it that way, and other parties being involved.
Cost-wise, which one is more expensive? Is it when you put them in one umbrella or when you source them differently?
From the transactions that I've dealt with, I've noticed that if one law firm is doing everything, there's a good chance that they can give you discounts.
Okay.
Because obviously, the transferring attorney will charge you a certain fee. The bond registration attorney will charge you a certain fee. So obviously, if you're a purchaser, the attorneys that will be involved, it's the transferring attorney and the bond registration attorney. If you're a seller, the transferring attorney will be included and the bond cancellation attorney will be included.
Sure.
Yeah, and then when it comes to costs, the costs do vary. And guys, here's something that people don't know. Transfer costs can be negotiated. Legit, they can be. I remember the second last transaction I did, the transferring costs were actually reduced by 15%.
Sure, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a huge amount. It's a huge difference, actually.
It is. It is. 42 minutes have gone since I was on the line. This is all that we have in Property Matters today?
Yeah, that's basically all I have. And then also, I just want to, I know that now I'm just sort of drifting apart from the main topic for today.
Yeah.
I just want to elaborate on what we spoke about last week.
Yeah.
So last week we were talking about communes, right?
Sure.
So there's just a few elements that I forgot to mention, which I felt like they were quite important that listeners need to take note of. So ways to reduce costs when having a commune, or perhaps a building that has a lot of residents. I've seen this actually from what residents do. So essentially what's important, or something that you need to invest in, is to have a borehole. So having a borehole, that same water can be the water that is used for the residents to go to Bahlape. Because now, obviously, if you just use the water from, let's say, Tshwane, the bill will actually be high. But
Sure.
then now if you've got a borehole, the bill will be less. So the water from Tshwane is the water that you can feed from the taps, maybe the kitchen tap
Yeah.
and maybe the basin.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
So
Off
flasher.
flasher, you can use the borehole water
Yeah.
now. Yeah, so that's how you can also eliminate costs. It's a very wise way.
Do you have a borehole?
Yes, we do have a borehole.
Can I have a borehole for as a private residence?
Yes, but then obviously a borehole in a the regulations try on.
Like what?
For instance, you need to apply for it. You can't just you have to apply for it. Secondly, I know about a borehole is that if the property has a borehole outside or somewhere in the property, it should state that there is a borehole in there. And also the municipality needs to know that you've got a borehole.
Can a borehole means that's what I shop?
So essentially what a borehole is that there's a well, it's essentially, how can I put it? It's water from the fasting. So how it's actually done, there's this truck, I've actually seen it one. I remember when I saw it, I never really understood why it was happening. So what I saw, let me just build the picture that I saw when I saw the borehole being made. This truck has got like this longest
trunk
driller, if I can put it that way. So what it does, it drills down through the earth. Apparently it can go like 20 to 30 meters down until water makes it from down. So it's sort of like spring water, if I can put it that way. From there, once the water rises, that's when pipes are installed, and then there's actually a pump that is installed. So that pump sucks the water from the ground, from the earth, if I can put it that way. Yeah.
So this borehole, it's available worldwide. Like ngai tsenya ke le go Pretoria, ngai tsela ke le go Limpopo, haina specific regions but are moment at.
Let me put it this way. Like right now, where we standing, if we were to dig deep, we'll find water. Let me put it that way.
All right. Let's hope we'll find water and not something else. 45 have gone after 7 o'clock. This is where we leave it for tonight. Thank you so much for your listening pleasure. We're back again next week, same time, same place, right?
Yes, sure.
Awesomeness. This is music by Sbahle. It's a song titled Mlanjini. Good evening.
This is Tshwane FM 93.6. 93.6.
I still want I still I was so glad into my life, so I started wanting my love. So I still wanting my love. I was so glad into my life, so I started wanting my love. I want to sing on every night, was coming to I want to do it, oh, I'm so glad. If you are me, put up on the back, tell us my love, I Impesio, ami yako. Tano mani, nunca monte. I started launching my love. I started launching my love. I was so glad into my life, so I started launching my love. So I was so glad into my life, so I started launching my oh, lovely, until I come oh, lovely. Yes, now another thing. I'm so glad every time we're fishing. Oh, love, so young again. my love, asame, impisiyo yami yakho, uthando wami, lungalonde. Asane lanje nimala, asane lanje nimala. I'm so glad so that's not a lunch in my soul. So to the lunch in my door. I see on the lunch in my soul. I'm so glad so that's not a lunch in my door.
Smart on this one, it's Mlan Jerry. Thank you so much. Have a lovely, lovely week ahead. We'll back again next week, same time, same place. Rata Rati. It's a great evening from myself to you.
Call us now, 010-382-4936. That's 012-382-493.6. 93.6.